Welcome back, my lovely citizens, and today we are going to be going over a VGC team. I know that this is a little bit different than my normal content. Normally I would focus on TCG primarily, but I've been wanting to delve into VGC for a while, and with terastallizing in this new format and the Series 1 rules dropping for VGC in general, I've sort of wanted to jump into doing a little bit of team profiles here and there as well. So, the first team that I have wanted to sort of develop and test out has been a team built around this little spooky boy here. Houndstone is a new dog Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet, and it has the ability Sand Rush. And historically, in a lot of different games, I have very much liked using sand teams. I've used sand teams back in Gen 5. I've been playing the video games for quite a while. I used to play in draft leagues, doubles, singles, OU, etc., etc. Hadn't really gotten into VGC competitively, but have always been a huge fan of the competitive video game formats in general. But sand has always been a huge part of me playing the game in general. I love sand teams, so the first profile I'm going to do is going to be a sand team. So Houndstone is a Pokemon with the ability Sand Rush. Sand Rush is if Sandstorm is active, this Pokemon's speed is doubled with immunity to Sandstorm, so it won't take the sand buff damage from sand when it is up. It has the move Last Respects, which is a signature move to Houndstone, although Hisuian Basculegion will be getting that when it releases. But it does 50 damage, well, not 50 damage, it has a base power of 50, and its base power increases by 50 for each fainted party member. In singles or doubles where there's a team of 6, this would be absolutely broken, because if this is the last Mon on the team, it does base 300 power. However, in VGC, it's limited to 4 Mons, you bring 6 and pick 4, so it's a little bit more limited in VGC, but still, if this is the last Mon, it hits for base 200 power, which is huge, and even if only a single Mon is down, base 100 power is still huge damage as well. 150 is probably when you're going to start swinging with this for, like, actual KOs, and with Tera-type Ghost, you can boost that damage even further. But this is essentially the premise that I'm wanting to build the team around. We have Last Respects to do a bunch of different damage in the late game. We have Play Rough as another good coverage move, because Ghost and Fairy together, there's nothing that resists both of those combined. It'll hit neutral at the very least on everything with just these two coverage moves. We have Bulldoze, which hits 60 base power ground move and hits both opponents, and also lowers their speed by 1, so it's good speed control as well, on top of the fact that you already have Sand Rush to boost your speed. And Ally Switch, which switches your position with an ally, so if they were going to be swinging into the Houndstone or swinging into one of your other Pokemon, and you want to swap their targets due to your type synergy, so they potentially hit into you for not very effective instead of super effective, Ally Switch is a very, very good move. On top of that, we have Colbur, which halves damage taken from a super effective dark type attack. Since our Tera type is Ghost, we are only going to be hit by Dark and Ghost for weakness, and Colbur resists the more common type to be swung into us, which would be Dark. A few other options for the items on this are Life Orb to boost damage even though we'll take damage in doing so, Spell Tag to boost specifically Last Respects, and I'm trying to think of another item it could also have. Clear Amulet, right, is a new item from this game that prevents stat changes to your Pokemon. So it would make you immune to Intimidate, which is a very, very common ability in VGC. On top of this, I think that a couple other options for moves, you could also add Shadow Sneak. It's another stab move, but has priority, so even if your opponent is using a priority move, if you're under sand, you'll be faster than them, and thus your priority move will hit first. Or you could run Tera Blast Ghost as something that can swing a little bit earlier for more power than the 50 base power on Last Respects. Although after one Pokemon is down, Last Last Respects ends up doing more damage anyway, so it's probably best to just leave Last Respects. If I didn't already have Will-O-Wisp on another one of my Pokemon, Will-O-Wisp would also be a very good option, potentially over Bulldoze as well. But for now, I like something that can hit both targets and also lower speed a bit. As for the EVs, we have maxed out attack, 168. We're wanting to swing as hard as possible with Last Respects, and the speed is up to 148. We have Adamant, so we're plus attack minus special attack because we're not using any special attacking moves with this Pokemon, but the 148 EVs puts us to 107 in our speed, which means that under Sand, we have 214 speed, which means we outspeed Dragapult, which is the fastest Pokemon in the meta at base 142 speed. This outspeeds them at max speed under Sand. So this dog is very, very fast. Anyway, let's move on to Tyranitar. Tyranitar is mainly our Sand setter here. They have Sandstream. On switch in, this Pokemon summons Sandstorm. On top of that, its base stats are insane. It has base 100 HP, 134 attack, 110 defense, 100 special defense, 95 special attack, and 61 speed. Speed's obviously the main lacking factor here, but there are ways to make up for it for sure. We are 4 times weak to fighting, however Chople Berry helps with that, and with Tera type Rock, we can remove the dark weakness, well, I mean, not dark weakness, but the dark typing to only make our weakness to fighting ×2 instead of ×4, and on top of that, Sandstream gives a special defense boost to rock types, so keeping our rock typing is important for that as well. We have Rock Slide, which hits both targets for 75 power, or 75 base power, with an accuracy of 90%, with a 30% chance to make the foes flinch. So having a 30% chance to flinch on top of everything else is also huge. If you hit first and they flinch off of Rock Slide, that is a Pokemon that was not able to swing at you that turn. On top of that, we have Crunch as another stab attack to just hit into one Pokemon. It also has a chance to lower defense, but it's mainly just there for a stab dark move. Good coverage in general as well. We have Dragon Dance, which ups our speed and attack by 1 stage. Very, very good on an off turn where something might be swinging into something else, or if you have Houndstone on the field and they want to ally switch and make sure that you don't get swung into by a fighting type move, that is a very, very good combination to use with this, so you can Dragon Dance, up your speed, and start dealing a ton of damage. Protect is mainly here in case we want to sort of gauge what they do, or swing with one of our Pokemon and potentially waste one of the opponent's attacks by having them swing into a Protect on us. And then as for the EVs, we are Adamant, max attack again, but on top of that, our speed is up to 248, base 100, well, up to 112 speed. At +1, this outspeeds base 100 Pokemon, putting us at 168 speed, whereas base 100 speed Pokemon only cap out at it's 157, I think. No, 167. So we outspeed by 1 point at +1, which is really relevant. This outspeeds Salamence in the meta, it outspeeds Volcarona, etc., etc. It's very good to have this at +1 because it outspeeds a lot of different threats, including Arcanine as well. Arcanine is another big one. On top of Chople Berry, we could swap this for a Clear Amulet as well, although we can only have one of any given item on the team, so you'd have to choose which Pokemon you want Clear Amulet on. Chople Berry is also very good here. And also, I'm a huge fan of Resist Berries. Resist Berries are fun. Alright, now we're on to Salamence. This one's probably the spiciest one on the team. This is a custom set that I made that is a mixed attacker with Tailwind. It has Intimidate, which is a very, very relevant ability. This is on switch in. This Pokemon lowers the attack of opponents by 1 stage. So lowering their attack is huge because it makes it less likely for your Pokemon to take as much damage. It has Eject Pack, which means that if it's intimidated or if I use Draco Meteor and lower my special attack, it's a free pivot to be able to use this again. So I can treat Draco Meteor as a extremely powerful Volt Switch once. On top of that, we have Tailwind to double our ally speed. This can make our Tyranitar fast enough to hit things super hard. It can make our Houndstone basically unable to be outsped by anything, which is also insane. And then just Eject Pack is my spicy little item here. On top of that, you could swap it for like a Lumberry or a Yache Berry, or you could swap the Rock Slide here for Air Slash if you want to go specifically special attack with this, and then move your attack to speed, move your attack to HP so you're a little bit tankier. But I like the Rock Slide because it's something that, even if you're at like -2 special attack, you can swing without a lowered attack stage, and potentially flinch your opponents as well. Plus, the base attack being 135 puts us at very, very close attacking stats here as well. We also have Heat Wave, which has 10% chance to burn the foes. It also hits both opponents, so having a special attacking fire move that hits both opponents is very good as well. Tera-type Fire to make this hit for stab is also really good. It also removes our Ice weakness and turns it into a resistance, which is another reason why Tera-type Fire is good. Alright, now let's move on to Tinkaton. I love this little gremlin. This little gremlin is absolutely amazing. A new Pokemon from this game with not the best stats in the world, but an absolutely broken attack. This attack, Gigaton Hammer, does 160 base power, and that's just straight up a huge bonk. With Tera-type Steel, that boosts that damage even further, and with Assault Vest, you're tanking a lot of special attacking hits very, very easily. And Own Tempo is basically like a built-in clear amulet, so it means you are completely immune to Intimidate, and immune to Confuse. Insane. The ability makes this a very, very strong attacker in the game. On top of Gigaton Hammer, we also have Play Rough, which is really good coverage in tandem with Gigaton Hammer, but the most important thing that makes this actually viable is Fake Out. Fake Out hits first and guaranteed flinches, but only on the first turn that this Pokemon comes into play. That's one of the important things about Fake Out in this, is if this Pokemon pivoted onto the field, if this is the first move it uses as it came onto the field, it hits first and flinches 100% of the time. So, good for chip damage, can break sturdy, can make your opponent's Pokemon lose an entire turn. Fake Out is an insane move. On top of that, we also have Knockoff, which is base 65 power, and does 1.5 damage if the foe holds an item, and removes said item. So you can remove Assault Vests, berries, attacking items, etc., etc. It's very, very good to have Knockoff. It's also really good for lowering the recovery of Mons that use leftovers for passive recovery, so that's huge as well. And as for the EVs, this one's a little weirder, but they are Jolly, which means they are plus speed minus special attack. We're not using any special attacking moves here. We have 228 speed, and this is specifically to get to the numbers to outspeed Annihilate. Annihilate is also a new Pokemon from this generation. It's a very, very strong physical attacker, but it has base 90 speed. So even Jolly, it will not outspeed our Tinkaton unless it has some other form of speed boosting. So we have 157 speed on this. We can swing into it with Play Rough or our big Gigaton Hammer, just bonking it and killing it. We also have 24 in special defense and 4 in HP. This is kind of relevant when it comes to like hazards, but hazards isn't super relevant in VGC. The reason why I put 24 here is to get this to an even number, so Assault Vest boosts it to an even stage, because at 1, it's not really boosting to the amount that Assault Vest would. Assault Vest boosts the special defense by 1.5 times, but makes it where you can only select attacking moves instead of support moves or anything else. Status moves and support moves. Which honestly I think fits Tinkaton's theme very, very well. No think, only attack, and also just it's about to assault things with this giant hammer. So I think Assault Vest is very, very fitting on a Tinkaton. But yeah, it boosts the special defense stat from 128 by 1.5 times that. Then we have attack, which we've maxed out. It would be higher if we were plus attack nature, but instead we're plus speed nature, just so we can outspeed Annihilate. But swinging with 127 power, swinging with a base 160 power steel move is also insane. And then just the leftover stat we put into HP to give us one more. Then we have Rotom-Wash. Rotom-Wash is a mon that has always been relevant ever since it came out because of its insanely good typing and ability. This thing is only weak to grass, and if you Tera type to electric, it's not weak to anything. The exception being if your opponent has Mold Breaker and uses a ground type move, because this Pokemon has Levitate. This Pokemon is immune to ground types. Gravity Ingrains, Smackdown, and Iron Ball nullify it, but those are very, very uncommonly used. The only thing that's like relevant that can actually damage Rotom-Wash with a ground type move is Mold Breaker, which is mainly on Haxorus. I mean, like, Tinkaton has Mold Breaker, but the only thing it would really be hitting with is Bulldoze. It's an option, but I think Own Tempo is kind of just better. But Levitate is very good. I mean, it's the only ability they have, but it's a very powerful ability at that. We have Leftovers, which is passive recovery. At the end of every turn, Rotom-Wash will restore 1/16 of its max HP. So on top of that, we have Volt Switch as a pivot move. We do 70 base power electric move and then swap out to something else. Good for pivoting into Tinkaton for fake outs, good for pivoting into Salamence for intimidates, pivoting into Tyranitar to set sand, or Amoonguss, which is another tank Pokemon. We'll go over that in just a bit. Then we have Hydro Pump. That's the signature Rotom-Wash move when you transform into this Pokemon from the regular Rotom. When it goes into the washing machine form, it automatically gets Hydro Pump. And it is a very good stab water move to have. Not the highest accuracy, but it still hits hard, and it's their only water move. So, then we have Will-O-Wisp. This is the reason we don't have it on Houndstone, is we already have it here. Will-O-Wisp has 85% accuracy and burns the target. Burns gradually do damage to your opponent, while also nerfing their attack stat. So this lowers your opponent's attack even further. On top of that, we also have Protect, good for if your opponent was going to swing into you, you can protect, and doubling with Leftovers. If you needed an extra turn of recovery, you can protect, not take any damage, and then restore 1/16 of your health. Very, very good. The EVs could be worked out a little bit more. This is just the spread that I have gone with for right now. You can alter it for more specific calculations to live specific moves at specific percents kind of thing. But for right now, we've put 252 into HP, 100 into defense, and 156 into special defense. I feel like this is a good spread that gives a good balance of defense and special defense, which is something that you want for a tank to be able to swap into basically any type. Really, the only thing you don't want to get hit by is grass, which is also part of the reason why we have one of the biggest grass resists in the game, Amoonguss. Amoonguss. Anyway, this is a sussy little mushroom. Anyway, we've given this one a Citrus Berry. When it's at half HP or less, it restores 25% of its health. Specifically once it's consumable. Once it's used, it's used. On top of that, it has one of the best abilities for a defensive Pokemon in the game, Regenerator, which whenever this Pokemon swaps out, restores 1/3 of its max HP, rounded down, when it switches out. So when you swap into something like Salamence, Tyranitar, Rotom-Wash, it restores its health. Very, very good for a tanky Pokemon that you want to keep around for a long time. Then it has some of the best support moves possible, in this particular meta especially. It has Spore, which causes the target to fall asleep. Rage Powder, which forces the opponent to hit specifically this Pokemon. This is great for being able to let your Tyranitar set up, let your Salamence set Tailwind, let your Tinkaton not die when it wants to Gigaton Hammer something. Very good move. Very good for taking the aggro off of some of your other Pokemon. Then we have Pollen Puff, which is both a move that you can use to attack your opponents, or heal your allies. The fact that Amoonguss gets this is insane. Like, say your Houndstone is damaged, or your Tyranitar, or Salamence, or Tinkaton, or Rotom-Wash, and it's next to you. You use Pollen Puff on it, and it heals them by 50%. This gives, like, every Pokemon on your team a 50% recovery move. It gives, like, every Pokemon recover, but they can still attack for their turn. It's really good. On top of that, we also have Clear Smog, which is a 50 base power move that resets all of the target's stats to 0. So if your opponent has, like, Dragon Dance or something like that, Dragon Dance, Agility, Swords Dance, etc., and you hit them with Clear Smog, all of that's gone. It is back to 0. They're back to their base stats. Very, very good move. Some people run Protect over this. Honestly, I think that's fine. But I very much like Clear Smog, so I'm keeping it here. On top of that, we have the 252 HP, 156 in defense this time, and 100 in special defense. I sort of swapped the Rotom-Wash one because I wanted this to have a little bit more defense, on top of the fact that there is another way for us to boost special defense with this, which I'll go over in just a second. But again, like the previous one, feel free to adjust the EVs for very specific calculations, like specific moves that you'd want to not take more than half on, or specific moves that you'd want to not die to in a single hit, so you have the opportunity to regenerate her. It's definitely important to have specific EVs on defensive Pokemon so they can live specific hits. However, the reason this is Tera-type Rock is because we want to be able to swap into a type that not only has fire resistance, but also synergizes with our Sand Core. If we swap to Rock type, we get the plus 1.5, or the times 1.5 special defense boost, and also gain a resistance to the fire type that otherwise would be swinging into our Amoonguss. Granted, you're most likely not going to be using Tera type with Amoonguss a lot, but this is the most relevant type for this specific team that I have made. So, I think that all of these work very well together. There's obviously things that can be changed around or, like, moved around for personal preference or meta developments. However, this is where we are at right now. I'll post the team copy-paste below in the description as well if you want to play it for yourself, but I hope you enjoyed this little profile here. I hope that I was able to give some form of insight on this team because it's a lot of fun to play for sure. VGC in this format is fun and I love terastallizing. Hope you all enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe if you did, and I'll catch y'all later.